What's up, noobs? Rick here. Apologies for the late video. I already recorded this one once and I discovered that my microphone was not functioning properly, and so I sounded tinny and like I was coming from you from a bathroom. So I'm redoing this because you deserve better. That said, this is the 5th video in my Grey Knights Brotherhood Redesign video series, and we're gonna talk about the Exactors. Ooh, everybody's impressed. Aren't you impressed? When we get started, we like to discuss the lore first. So, Grandmaster Coven Leoric runs the 7th Brotherhood. He is the Inquisition representative. So the 7th Brotherhood is really known for working very, very closely with the Ordo Malleus and the rest of the Inquisition to make sure that demonic forces everywhere are sought out and destroyed. To that end, they are the one that is most typical to bring in outside forces that are not the Grey Knights to go ahead and combat these challenges. So what's the current state? The current state, the stratagem is Sanctic Guardians. It allows you to heroically intervene with any unit as if you were a character. This is very good. It is situational, but it is very good. And I do not think that it needs to be changed. Their Warlord trait is Oath of Witness. You get to add 1 to the Warlord's leadership, and then while friendly Exactors core units are within that bubble, they don't have to take morale tests because they automatically pass. This isn't good. This is not a fun Warlord trait. It might be thematic, but it's not interesting on the tabletop. So, Exterminatus. Their psychic power fires of the Covenant. Also, situationally very good against hordes. So if you live through a fight back phase and you get to survive your next turn and you're in your psychic phase, you could potentially do a ton of damage to a large group of, say, Necron warriors. The thing is, the game right now is all MSU. Very few armies are rolling anything with large amounts of units anyway, so this also becomes very situational. For instance, is very bad against Custodes, who the largest group you're going to run into is 3. Let's give the 7th Brotherhood a better tool for their toolbox. Exterminatus. So the design philosophy of the 7th Brotherhood, we want to go ahead and we want to make sure that they're able to use outside and Inquisition forces more readily than the other Brotherhoods, because that's kind of their niche, right? But at the same time, if you want to make just as Exactors list on your own with no allies, you should be able to do that too. So let's start with the passive bonuses. I like the idea of buffing Terminators. So the first one is that while they advance, they get to fire their rapid fire to Stormbolters as if they were Assault 2. So you're gonna get half as many shots, but you still get some shots and you're gonna take the -1 to hit penalty, but hey, you're gonna be able to move faster and still shoot. Then whenever an Inquisitor is part of your Battleforged army, you're going to get an army-wide 6-up Feel No Pain. That's it. It lasts until the Inquisitor is killed, and it does not stack with the Feel No Pain from the Apothecary, so you couldn't have the Inquisitor and the Apothecary and then have a 5-up on 1 unit, for instance. And then once per game, per unit, you can pick 1 core or character unit to be in the Tide of Shadows, irrespective of whatever tide you're already in. I've done this on all the other ones. I'm gonna do it on all the ones in the future. I just think that it's neat to go ahead and give more bonuses surrounding our tides, because our tides are so unique to the Grey Knights, and I don't think they're leveraged as much as they could be. Here's where things get really fun, I think. So this is an additional stratagem. Inquisitorial Requisition, 0 CP. When building your army, you may decide to take one of the following without losing Tides of the Warp. 1. An Astra Militarum patrol exclusively of infantry. 2. An Adeptus Astartes Exorcist patrol with infantry models only. 3. A Forge World Demos Imperial Knight Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment. These detachments do not get Tides of the Warp, and you cannot have this detachment be more than 33% of your total points, so 660 points for 2,000 point match. And then while the stratagem in and of itself costs 0 CP, you must still pay the CP cost of any of the additional detachments. So the Astra Militarum Patrol would be 2 CP, the Exorcist Patrol would be 2 CP, and the third one would be 3 CP. And yes, I know there is no Forge World Demios. I think that it would be awesome if it was included or made up or whatever, because it would be very thematic for the Grey Knights to be able to call upon the Imperial Knights of their Forge World to combat the enemies of the Empire. So how would I change their Warlord trait? Well, I thought this was interesting. Withering Fire. Each time an Exactors infantry or Dreadnought Corps unit is within 6 inches of this Warlord and shoots a bolt weapon or a psi weapon, an unmodified hit roll of 5 or 6 scores an additional hit. I specifically excluded Dread Knights because they're already good enough. We don't need to make their psi weapons better, but I like the idea of a group of Terminators or Purgation squads moving up that are part of the Exactors, and they're able to shoot a withering amount of firepower. How would I change their Brotherhood psychic power? I would do this. I think this is pretty interesting. Empiric Isolation. It's a malediction. It has a warp charge value of 7. You select one enemy unit within 18 inches of the psyker that it can see. If it is manifested against a character, reduce the range of all aura abilities of that character by 3 inches. If the result of the psychic test was higher than the character's leadership, then until the start of your next psychic phase, enemy units cannot benefit from that character's auras at all. This is effectively the Death Watch Severance psychic power, although I did make 2 changes. One is I changed it to line of sight, and 2 is that if this unit is not a character, it instead suffers -1 to hit until the start of your next psychic phase. So that means that this power is useful every turn. You're going to be wanting to cast it every turn, or at least thinking about how you may cast it every turn. Where the old Exactors power, you would maybe use once in a tournament if you're lucky. The Relic. This is a shout out to Stefan from One Last Blade, for even though he loves his Grey Knights, he is notorious for having horrible psychic phases. So this is the Warp Weave Hood. Once per turn, the bearer can reroll any or all of the dice from a psychic test, and then each time the bearer would lose a mortal wound as a result of suffering perils of the warp, you get a 4-up, feel no pain. That's it. It's good. It makes your Warlord or whatever character you have with powers that has to go off, like probably the linchpin of your army, this is going to help make them more reliable. And yes, I would say that this would stack with the stratagem that lets you roll 3d6 and you get to reroll 1 or 2 or even all 3 of those dice for 1 psychic test once per turn. And I think that that would go so far to help making Grey Knights more reliable. What would a 7th Brotherhood Exactors list look like in this example with these rules? Well, here's what I came up with. So the linchpin of the whole thing is way down at the bottom there, a Knight Paladin. Again, there is no Forge World demos, so I gave him Free Blade, but I also gave him the Melted Gun, the Reaper Chainsword, because it's iconic and looks amazing. Twin Icarus auto cannons, rapid fire battle cannon with heavy stubber. This is a 460 point model that's crushing around the battlefield and the enemy will have to deal with. Going back to HQs, we have a Grandmaster on foot with Gate of Infinity, Empiric Amplification, first into the fray, the Withering Fire Warlord trait for the 7th Brotherhood, and the Warp Weave Hood for the 7th Brotherhood. We have a Brother Captain with Warp Shaping, the Soul Glaive, a Silencer, just because I had 5 extra points, and Noble Death, which is amazing and underutilized, and Noble Death is just fantastic. Agents, yes, agents, because they're going to benefit from a 6-up Feel No Pain if we bring in Inquisitor, so we're going to do that. Inquisitor Cotiez with Mental Interrogation for CP regen. You're already using up a lot of CP to bring those relics, bring those Warlord traits, and then bring that Knight Paladin, so you might as well get some CP back. For troops, we're going to bring a 5-man Terminator squad with swords, a 5-man Terminator squad with hammers, a 5-man Terminator squad with a mess of stuff, including 1 hammer on the Justicar and an incinerator, Then we're gonna have a 5-man unit of interceptors. In heavy, we're gonna have a Nemesis Dread Knight with sword, teleporter, incinerator, and side cannon. And that rounds out the list, which would play like this. You would have to utilize the heavy mobility afforded by deep striking, shunting, gate of infinity, and the interceptors just naturally being very, very fast. You're going to have a lot of shots coming out from those Terminators with withering fire. And then if you ever get in range, and because of the recent changes to Armor of Contempt, those Terminators are going to be tankier than ever. The Inquisitor will be there, giving the whole army a 6-up Feel No Pain. And then the Brother Captain and the Grandmaster are there to just give a lot of efficiency and reliability to all those shots and all of that damage. So a 5-man Terminator squad is going to be rerolling ones to hit, rerolling ones to wound, and then they're going to be getting extra hits on 5s and 6s. And then again, the Knight is a threat that just has to be dealt with. You can't ignore it. The enemy will have to do something about it. And I think that's fun. So that's my thoughts on the Exactors, how they could be made better. Yes, this is heavily inspired by Stefan's One Last Blade. I played him with my Deathwatch up in Seattle at Waystone Wargaming just the other week. You should check that out over on his channel, link in the description below. Go ahead and let me know in the comments and everything. What do you think about this series? I'm 5 out of 9 now. Yes, 9, because as we gave away in that video for One Last Blade, I will be topping off this series with my idea of what a cool Army of Renown might be. Let me know in the comments below what Brotherhood you'd like to see me do next. We've only got Ward Makers, Rapiers, and Silver Blades left, but hey, let me know, because the last 2 have been decided by you guys, so might as well let you guys decide this one too. I think it's fun to actually interact with my audience. Apologies again for the delay in the video. Life happens. That's the way that this works, and don't forget, call your mother.